Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything is Energy. Welcome to the weekly astrology forecast for the week of today, Sunday, April 12th through Saturday, the 18th. The theme this week is courage to feel and courage to act. There's still a lot of Aries energy moving through. And yeah, we have an Aries new moon that's taking place on Friday. I'll touch on that lightly here, but I've got a podcast for that, and there's lots of Aries energy there. But there's a whole lot going on. So let's go ahead and, that part of the theme is there's this desire to move forward, but there's this sense intuitively that we're not rushing into anything and we're not reacting. That really this is about being with the flows of energy and moving with awareness. And there's actually a fair amount going on this week. So I'm going to jump right in with Sunday, the 12th today. At 8 a.m., we have Mercury semi-sextile to Chiron. So this really kind of gives us a caveat. I want to let you guys know there's a huge 4-day thunderstorm and rainstorm here. I've got noise canceling on. I'm building a little studio so that I won't have to have the year be. So if it's noisy, I apologize. So, but we're gonna just truck on through. So, Mercury semi-sextile to Chiron. This means that our thoughts, our conversations, they may um, touch on some vulnerable places. This doesn't mean that there's anything dramatic going on, but it might pull at our heartstrings a little bit. And really, what this means on Sunday is it's an invitation to listen more deeply. It's an invitation to speak with awareness, and it's an invitation to simply observe areas that feel sensitive to ourselves and to others. At 9 p.m. on Sunday, we have the second aspect, close to 9 p.m., and that's the sun is going to be semi-square to the north node. And this is just a subtle tension between where we are and where we're headed. And so we might become aware on Sunday that there's need for adjustment. Maybe there's a sense that we can recalibrate our direction a little bit. And again, with this aspect, this is not a crisis. This is an observation and an opportunity for course correction. When we get to Monday, the 13th, this is a day where, vision really meets action because this is one of the most energetically complex days of this week. We begin at around 1:30 in the morning. Mars is conjunct Neptune in the sign of Aries. Rules Aries. And, Mars is the planet of action, meeting Neptune, which is the planet of vision, illusion, and intuition. And in Aries, this creates the opportunity for inspired movement. But the caveat there is that if we're rushing, if we're reacting, there's potential confusion. So if we feel motivated but unclear, or inspired but not quite clear, this is not a day to force. This is a day to let the fog lift, to sit with observations and awarenesses and trust what shows up, and maybe even give it a little bit more time so that we can have clarity. And really, what this means, I guess, if I could put it fundamentally, let's let our actions today be guided by our intuition versus our sense of urgency. And that's that theme that I'm talking about taking action but not being reactionary. We also, around 4:30 in the morning, we have Venus sextiling Jupiter. This is a really beautiful, supportive aspect, and this is about opening our hearts and leading with our hearts and acting and living from our heart. And so really on Monday, there is ease available, and it is our opportunity to receive that ease and to remember that we can choose love. We can choose the higher vibrational octave of anything at any point in time. Just before 10 p.m., we have Venus semi-square to Neptune. And this is, you know, if there was emotional clarity earlier in the day, just a caveat here to be wary of over idealization, of over giving, or of simply seeing what it is that we want to see. And I think here the part of the thing that we're remembering collectively is that, as I've mentioned before, this isn't a short-term journey that we're on right now. If we think about these cycles and how they're hundreds and hundreds of years, and how all of these outer planets changing sign, and even, you know, Neptune conjunct Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries, these are thousands and thousands of years cycles. So of course we're not going to just make a 180-degree turn in 2 days' time, right? This is about staying grounded in what is real. That's what is coming through on Monday. On Tuesday, the 14th, we have the opportunity for insight to arrive. We have the main aspect today is that Mercury is sextiling Uranus, and that's around 1 p.m. And as is Uranus's wont, lightning bolts of change, lightning bolts of clarity. And Mercury is in late Pisces at this point in time, and it's connecting with Uranus. Uranus is in late Taurus. Uranus is preparing to enter into Gemini next week. But right now, these planets are in late degrees of these signs, and this is bringing us this opportunity for intuitive insight. And in Uranian fashion, maybe there's a sudden understanding, maybe there's an aha moment, there's clarity that comes through. It's also, a really nice energy for creativity, thinking outside of the box. Something new may come into our understanding out of nowhere. Something may simply click into place. So this is a really good day to pay attention. Notice the flows, notice the signs, notice what comes through to you. On Wednesday, April 15th, this is an interesting day. We've got some tension here between desire and action. Around 7:30 in the morning, we've got Mars semi-square to Venus. So there's some subtle friction here between, if Mars is how we give love and Venus is how we receive love, there's this friction between what we want and how we move toward it. So potentially we may feel impatient or slightly conflicted or unsure. The medicine here again is to not overreact, to pause before acting, to pause before reacting, to make sure that I'm going to fall back again on acting from our heart, moving from the wisdom of our heart, moving from our center, staying grounded, breathing deeply, and maybe even asking for a sign if we need some confirmation and not rushing things. We also on Wednesday have Venus quintile the North Node. And this is perfect. This happens around 8:30 in the evening, and it kind of is the softener of the Venus semi-square to Mars. Quintiling the North Node, that's a really gentle realignment, and it's a realignment towards why our soul is here. And, this might be the time in this evening where what's meaningful begins to guide us again. And this is really a quiet yes. This doesn't have to be loud. We've spoken before about we don't have to be the loudest person in the room. We simply have to be in our own alignment and in alignment with our own truth. On Thursday, April 16th, this is a day of healing and power. This is another second most important day of the week. This is a pretty active week in terms of what all the planets are aspecting or how they're aspecting each other, excuse me. Around 11 a.m., we have the Sun conjunct Chiron in Aries. And this invites a powerful healing moment. The sun, the sun is illuminating. The sun is illuminating Chiron, bringing awareness to our tender spaces, our patterns around our identity, the places where maybe courage has been difficult or where there's past need for healing. But this isn't about reopening. This isn't about ripping off the Band-Aid. This is about seeing clearly and choosing differently. That's a very different energy. So, as I mentioned before, we may feel a little bit like some of our old fears or traumas are up and activated. But the thing that we really get to remember right now at this juncture on our planet is we are different. The planet is different. The energy is lighter than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 250 years ago, 400 years ago, however you want to count it. Humanity has been healing and ascending. And so this Sun conjunct Chiron and Aries moment of healing is an up leveling. It's a chance for us to choose differently, to see differently, to realize that the old stories are just that. They're part of our past, and that the new story is something that we can actively write. We have two more aspects here. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Mars is sextiling Pluto. And this is interesting on the heels of what I just talked about with Sun and Chiron. This is where Mars sextiling Pluto, this is where action becomes powerful. When Mars connects with Pluto, this is strength, this is determination, this is deeply focused movement. But Pluto is about karma. Pluto is about truth beneath the surface. Pluto is about aligned power. Pluto is subtle energy. This isn't brute force. This is the stuff that many people think of as magic. It's subtle energy, is what it is. And we think of it as magic because we don't understand it, because it's a little bit foreign to us, because for many generations we've stopped working with it. But Mars sextiling Pluto is a flow of energy, and it's a really wonderful opportunity for us to stand in our truth and stand in our power and know that if we are in alignment with our soul's purpose, then yes, we can take action. Do we need to make reactionary action again? No. We can do this in a way that is powerful, but doesn't need to be forceful. Around 10 p.m., we have Mercury conjunct Neptune. And this is really cool because this is going to close the day with some softened perception. And this is a really beautiful energy for dream work tonight, for meditation, for reflection, for just any kind of intuitive awareness. So, you know, this is not that this evening on Thursday, not necessarily a great time for super concrete decisions, but it's about feeling into something and feeling into what is true or what is inspired or what feels right. And we don't have to define it, we just have to know it. Moving on to April 17th, which is Friday. This is a little bit of a reality check. We only have one aspect, but it's Venus semi-square Saturn around 11 in the evening. And this is a really grounding influence in our emotional field. Saturn is kind of like Pluto, the planet of karma. They both are wonderfully restrictive, but for our own good at the right time. And, Venus semi-square Saturn, we may feel aware of the boundaries. We may feel called to clarify boundaries. We may feel aware of a limitation. But it's important to know that nothing is set in stone. And this is not restriction, and this is not punishment. This is refinement, and this is just helping us to stay in the flow of energy and to not get the cart before the horse, so to speak. And then let's get to Saturday, April 18th. This is a day of clarity and structure. We have two aspects here today. The first one is at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and as Mercury is going to sextile Pluto. And this is potentially going to give us some clear focus to our mental reality, to our mental body, to our communication, to our perception. Really nice energy for honest conversations, for seeing truth without distortion. If there was a time to make a decision, Saturday afternoon might bring some clarity around what those decisions might be. That's because there's this return of this kind of clear and focused thinking with Mercury sextiling Pluto. We also have Saturn semi-sextile the North Node just before 7 p.m. on Saturday. This is a subtle alignment, but it's an important alignment. And this is where structure and direction come into coherence. This is where long-term movement begins to stabilize. So there's interesting themes, I think, throughout April, but especially with this week. And I forgot to mention, I did mention, I'm going to do a whole podcast on it, but on Thursday we also have the new moon in Aries. It's a pretty big deal. I've got a whole other podcast coming up on that in a couple days, so make sure to check that out. But if we think about what's happening here, there's this Aries energy that's very present this week. And there's this sense of owning our power, taking courageous action, but there's all this outer planet support that's happening right now. And all these other subtle aspects are reminding us that this isn't a time to force. This isn't a time to um, overact or overreact. This is a time to take action that is in alignment, to speak our truth, but to do so with the energy that comes from our heart. I've said that before, I'll say it again. And so I really, I think that this is the invitation here is not to rush past what we feel and to let awareness guide our movement. So I hope that you have a blessed week. I will get to a meditation here. I'll put that up in a little bit just after I finish this recording. All right, guys, have a blessed week. Tons of love.